News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. Well, I want to ask you this. Do you think Kamala understands how business works? How businesses actually work? And do you think the economy would be better with her in office? And how does it make you feel if something were to happen with a President Kamala, Tampon Tim would be one step away from the presidency? How does that make you feel? Well, the answer is clear. Our number is 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227 in hour number 2 of the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. 800-288-WBAP is our number. Well, she does not understand how business works for a few reasons. She does not understand why government price controls are an absolute disaster, which is basic economics. She does not understand that profligate spending, which she is responsible for 3 times. She is the biggest reason why inflation happened in Biden-Harris. She cast a tie vote in 3 votes, spending $2.5 or $2.8 trillion. Joe Biden spent he spent $5.8 trillion, almost $6 trillion during 3.5 years of his presidency, and Kamala Harris signed on to most of that. Personally, broke the tie to make it happen. I'll give you more details, but Trump's spending is much, much lower. And the Wall Street Journal today does an analysis of the inflation record, and that is absolute death for businesses and economies. Kamala doesn't understand how businesses work because she thinks you can do price controls, and what happens with that, government price controls, which is what happens with that is Venezuela. The stores are empty. Men have to take off a day of work to accompany their wives to go buy groceries so they don't get jacked and robbed and beaten in the street for their groceries. Government vouchers are given. You can only go to the store 2 times a week to buy your food, and whenever you go, the grocery shelves are almost completely empty. That's what price controls would do, and that's what she proposed. She also proposed going after price gouging. She called it price gauging, but price gouging doesn't exist, and we already have laws on the book if somebody does that in every state. There's no conspiracy. You know what's funny? The Democrats, when Obama was in office for 8 years, never said anything about price gouging, never blamed price gouging. They never blamed it for any inflation under Obama nor under Trump. Only now, when they're running for re-election and they're the ones with high prices and high inflation. Second of all, the Wall Street Journal doing a blistering editorial today about how Trump goes to McDonald's and how Harris would put all these McDonald's franchises out of business. The Harris-Biden Federal Trade Commission is seeking to, and her National Labor Board, NLRB, the National Regulations Board, they, under the Harris-Biden administration, are cracking down on franchisees. She went and rallied with people striking at fast food, and also she and all of her Democrat and Biden and all the Democrat acolytes all fight for minimum wage much higher. Well, the Journal reporting today that the unemployment numbers in non-union states, the unemployment numbers in that just have the government minimum wage like Texas does, okay? Unemployment numbers there are at 3.2%-ish. And the unemployment numbers in states with highly inflated mandatory minimum, wage, they raise the minimum wage like $15, $12 an hour or more. Those states' unemployment is an extra 1.5 higher. Second of all, they go through in detail about the numbers on teenage workers, many of them working in fast food, as you remember, and how the numbers in unemployment in teen workers has skyrocketed under Biden-Harris compared to Trump, and how they're hyper-regulating and trying to help unionize through their NLRB, National Labor Relations Board. They're trying to hyper-unionize and she rallied for the unions for McDonald's. And unionizing McDonald's will bust up, and they want to overly regulate the franchisees and allow unions in. That will destroy McDonald's and fast food workers' jobs like it has in California, and it will also destroy the franchisees' abilities to make profit and for McDonald's and their franchisees to profit, according to the Wall Street Journal in an editorial today. So those are just some of the reasons why this woman does not know anything about business. She's never worked in a business. She claims she worked at McDonald's. That'd be the only one that she's worked at in her entire life, but yet there's no proof of it. She has produced no proof. McDonald's has produced no proof. The Daily Mail's investigated. Snopes has investigated. They have no proof. Nobody knows. And nobody's come out and said they worked with her. Maybe that explains why her policies are a disaster for McDonald's. Second of all, inflation. This is an amazing inflation record the Journal has laid out, but I want to ask you again. Do you think Kamala understands how business works? Do you think the economy would be, how do you think the economy would be with her in office? And how does it make you feel that if something were to happen to Kamala, Tampon Tim would be one step from the presidency? That's obviously extremely worrying. If a national emergency happens, he would be frozen for 3 days, like he did in Minnesota with the riots, and he would let police stations burn like he did in the Minneapolis riots. Kamala could not explain during her interview with Fox, the Journal says today, their editorial board, how with Bret Baier, how this week, last week, how she would be better on the economy and inflation with Trump. She couldn't explain it. She didn't. Harris told Bret Baier, that my plans for the economy will strengthen the economy. She talks about 16 Nobel laureates who have reviewed her plans, Goldman Sachs and Moody's and the Wall Street Journal. However, the Journal says we'd never endorsed her economic plan. They make a big point of that immediately. They talk about inflation under Kamala was 2.1% inflation under Trump was 2.1% in the first 3 years of his presidency, compared to 5.1 under Harris Biden. They had 2.5 times higher inflation in their first 3 years than he did in his first 3 years. Deficits under Trump totaled $2.4 trillion during Trump's first 3 years, compared to Biden, 5.8. They literally had 2.5 times the spending than Trump did, 2.4 trillion compared to 5.8 trillion. Some of the $3 trillion in COVID spending during the 2020 budget no doubt contributed to inflation. In March 2021, Democrats stoked consumption even more with their $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, even as states were lifting lockdowns and vaccines rolled out, they report. I'm going to give you the rest of this. It's a damning report on how Harris versus Trump and the inflation record, and it just is damning to the Harris record on inflation versus the Trump record. There is no clue. She has no clue on how to run a business, how businesses work, and this economy will be a disaster with her in office. I forgot to mention one of her other policies. It's a disaster. The $25,000 for every first-time home buyer towards the home. The Journal did an analysis of this, as well as many other experts have said. All this would take the price of, let's say, a $400,000 home, and it would go to $425,000 because the owners would charge the extra $25,000 that you would get. Second of all, Chris Krok's analysis is clear. An average mortgage today under Kamala is $3,300. Under Trump, it was less than half that. It was $1,700. You might get $25,000 towards a house, but can you afford $3,300 a month for your first-time home buyer? Are you kidding me? Nobody can afford that unless you got lots of money. That's her plan. A road to nowhere. The inflation record, the rest of this damning editorial from the Journal, some highlights from it are next on the Chris Krok Show, News Talk 820 WBAP. Now on FM at 93.3. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. Also coming up next, early voting started today. 45-minute wait lines in Tarrant County. Are you going to early vote? Have you already done it? And how busy was it if you did? I'll tell you what my plans are next on the Chris Krok Show on WBAP. 800-288-9227 is our number. News Talk 820 WBAP now on FM at 93.3. Do you think Kamala understands how business works? Do you think the economy would be better with her in office? And how does that make you feel that if something were to happen to Kamala, Tampon Tim would be one step away from the presidency? 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. The Wall Street Journal editorial board saying Trump, Harris, and McDonald's. Harris agenda endangers jobs in franchise restaurants, jobs at McDonald's, for example. The NRLB, the National Relations Labor Board, had a joint employer rule, which Kamala and Biden pushed. It wants to make it easier to unionize workers at franchises. It will reduce franchisee autonomy and increase their costs, resulting in fewer jobs. In the spring, there was a bipartisan resolution to block the rule, bipartisan, to stop this. Harris also backed minimum wage from $7.25 going up to $15 and then $20. Another recipe for jobless teens. They talk about, for example, in the states where they had that kind of a $15 minimum wage or more, unemployment among median unemployment was 1.1% higher in the 20 states that mimic this federal minimum wage Kamala wants. And it was 4.2% in the states with minimum wage between 14 and 15. So it was 1.1% higher in the minimum wage, $14 to $17 an hour places. They also talk about the tight labor rates with the inflationary cost that leads to higher prices. And look at this. They talk about a Happy Meal went from $4.69 from $3 to $4.69. A Big Mac meal went from $7.29 to $9.29. Price gouging is a joke. They ridicule that as one of her policies, and how Harris Biden's FTC is also anti-McDonald's and other corporations and franchises. When it comes to inflation, they talked about how Kamala and Joe spent $5.8 trillion compared to Trump's $2.4 trillion. They say they also lit a match on the American Rescue Plan by spending $2 trillion, composed largely of transfer payments, $1,400 checks per person, $3,600 per child tax credits, extra $300 a week in unemployment benefits, a 15% increase in food stamps, rental assistance, and more. Such handouts discouraged unemployed Americans from returning to work since they could earn as much as not working. That is exactly, in the past year, what a valet guy we have a valet for elderly people, people that are wheelchair bound and stuff like that. We have a valet for people like that, for people that you can pull up at my church. And the valet service, it's not employed by our church. It's a service that everybody, all these places use in Dallas and such. And there's a guy who was talking to me about this. He said, you wouldn't believe it. I was in line at our cafeteria at church, and he says, you wouldn't believe how many of these people. I said, why do you think they're not working? He goes, because he literally cited that right there. So the guy doing valet says the people are bums and not go back to work because of this, welfare spending. There's more details on it, but they close off by saying this unprecedented helicopter drop of money from Kamala and Joe, aided by the Federal Reserve, kicked off the highest inflation in 40 years. Trump's first-term tariff blitz hurt economic growth, but it did not lead to broad inflation, they say. Even with Trump's tougher border policies in his first term, the U.S. still added 1.7 million legal immigrants, most of whom were legal. His deportations didn't make a dent in the actual labor force. He didn't hurt the labor market from his illegal immigration policies. And Trump's tax reforms, they say, spurred business investment that boosted the supply side of the economy and helped keep inflation down. They ridicule her Nobel Prize-winning economists who she cites. They claimed in 2020, those same Nobel laureates or whatever, claimed that Biden's $4.8 trillion Build Back Better, i.e. cradle-to-grave welfare state, the Journal says, would ease inflation. Those same idiots did. Democrats passed a down payment on that plan, and inflation soared, they said. Ms. Harris has adopted the Biden spending agenda and more. On budget deficits and inflation, his first-term record is far superior, Trump's is, to the 4 years of Biden-Harris. Let's go to Eddie in Irving, WBAP. Hey, Eddie.
What's going on, brother? It's me again.
What's up?
You know what? What's up is interest rates. and the economy is down, and Kamala is a puppet. Let's just talk about her. She doesn't know about business. She hasn't been in business. She's never made money from any business. She got on on her interview and said how she's passionate about small businesses. What do you mean she's passionate? You know why she's passionate? Because that's what they told her to say in her little pearl earring that she's wearing on her ear, that she's getting fed all her little answers from on what to say to everybody. She's a puppet.
I don't think she's getting answers from people. I think she just is told what the same people that run Obama and Biden's campaign are telling her what to do, and she just does it. The problem is she doesn't know what she's talking about. I appreciate your great call, Eddie, as always. Joe in Grand Prairie, hello, you're on WBAP. What do you got?
Yeah, you had asked about early voting. I did vote early today. In Tarrant County. The line took about an hour and 15 minutes to get it done.
Wow, they were reporting in the Star-Telegram today 45 minutes. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, when we got there, they said 45-minute wait, but by the time really you got in there, it was an hour and 15 minutes from the time I got there till the time I got out. Also, people might not understand that if you're near different counties, you can only early vote in the county in which you're registered. Because there were people that waited an hour in line.
No, I wouldn't. My God.
An hour in line, and they said, I'm sorry, Tarrant County.
I wouldn't even early vote anywhere that's not in my immediate area, like immediate. Like, I got to double check in my area, but when I go early voting, and I'm going to, I got to run, but in 5 seconds, why did you early vote?
I called the election board. I said, what is the greatest chance of my vote counting?
Okay.
And they said, the earlier you vote, the better it will be.
Got to go. Well done. Okay, I'm going to tell you why I'm going to early vote, and I want to hear if you have. Are you going to vote early? Have you already? How busy was it? Do you trust early voting? Do not miss what Trump says, what I say, and what other folks say in the column today in the Wall Street Journal, on the Chris Kroc Show, and what the Star-Telegram says on News Talk 820 WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. That's coming up next at 9:33. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. Well, we just had a caller who voted in Tarrant County, and it was not 45 minutes. What did they say, an hour and 15? Woo! On the first day of early voting in Texas. My questions for you, are you going to early vote this year? Have you already? And how busy was it? Also, do you trust early voting? Many voters, many people in the Trump camp are suspicious of early voting. And even Trump himself last time foolishly said, do not early vote. I don't trust it. Much to his detriment when he had a 1.33 million vote advantage. And then all of a sudden in came with the ballots that were counted at 1.44 million that Biden had for mail-in ballots and early voting. So that was the death knell for Trump. And so this year, he is very wisely saying, vote now, vote early. And he's smart to do that. And the more of us that do that, I had no idea how important this is. Mark Penn is the person I mentioned earlier. He was Bill and Hillary Clinton's pollster for 13 years. My gosh. He is the chairman of the Harris Poll and also a Fox News contributor. And here's what he says about why early voting is so important. On the area of early voting, he says, on an area that may make a critical difference is whether Trump has closed the mail-in vote gap with Ms. Harris. Mail-in votes are 100%. Listen closely on why you should early mail or mail-in ballot. Now, mail-in balloting, you have to qualify for it in Texas, so I'm not going to tell you to do that because we're not in a very liberal state where anybody and their brother can mail in. Early voting is what I recommend you do, and early voting is what I'm going to do for the first time in my life. I've never done this before. Because pollster Mark Penn says why they are so more successful than voting on the day of. Mail-in votes or early voting is 100% in the bank. You've gone, it's done. Election day votes are less certain, he says, because things come up in people's lives and opinions change. Republicans have been experiencing 1 to 2 points leakage, quote unquote, by relying on election day ballots for most of their vote. If they instead encourage and do early vote, they may pick up the 1 or 2 percentage points that they need to flip most of the swing states. Do you hear this? 1 to 2 points difference in each state when you early vote. Your mom could have a heart attack. Your dad could have to go to the hospital. Your son could get hospitalized or trip and have an emergency surgery. You could get rained in, or, I mean, we're not going to get snowed in, but you just don't know. In many states, you can get snowed in or iced in. I'm telling you something, if you don't get in beforehand, you're risking the day of. And the day you risk the day of is the one time when you're mad at yourself because you couldn't do it, even though you were for certain going to do it. You know, it's like my workout. And I always get mad when I can't get a workout in Monday through Friday. I don't do any of that on the weekends. And I get mad at myself because I wasn't disciplined. And this is worse because you're voting. So I think you must early vote. And I think if you don't, you're only hurting you and the people you want to vote for. And I mean that very, very earnestly and very passionately. I had a listener call in. So I'm going to put that out right now. It's 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Are you going to early vote? Have you already early voted? And how busy was it if you did today? And do you trust early voting? And I do. I had a listener this past week who's like, I don't trust that. I said, dude, are you kidding me? I heard from a different pollster I heard last week, and I gently rebuked that listener. I said, I heard a pollster earlier today. That was last week. I said, I heard a pollster earlier today that said 8 to 10% of people don't make the day of when they plan on it. And literally then you see a separate pollster, Mark Penn, write a column in the Journal over the weekend that says Republicans get 1 to 2 points of leakage, quote unquote. So they lose 1 to 2 percentage points in the vote because they miss on election day when they plan to vote on the election day. And that literally is the same thing that I told you last week that I heard from a different pollster about 8 to 10% of people don't go on day of. It translates to 1 or 2% of the vote. Meanwhile, today, so you got to vote now, is my opinion. I chose not to even think about going in the first several days because I'm not going to sit there for an hour. I mean, if I go there right now and it's, even more than 15 minutes, I'm going to go a day or 2 or 3 later. It's just, to me, it's like anything. If something is on sale or if something starts and everybody goes crazy over it, but I know it's still going to be around because it's not limited. You know what I mean? There's not a limit on it. Why would you want? I mean, people get excited. I'm always of the position that if you're not going to have if you don't have a chance of losing it, why would you go in the first several days of anything and be waiting in line? Is that exciting to sit in lines for 45 minutes? Not for me. Why would you wait in line for 45 minutes when you could probably end up waiting the same amount of time on the day of? Go like a weekend when it dies down. Go at an odd time. Maybe you have a job like I do where I go in late and so I go during the most hardest time for the average people to go, and there's very little people typically. 800-288-WBAP is our number. Lines wide open. Chime in right now. We'll be able to pop you on. 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Are you going to early vote? Have you early voted already? And how busy was it if you did? And do you trust early voting? So 800-288-9227. Camp Bowie toward the UNT UNT Health Science Center in, of course, Tarrant. That was a long line. A bit to their surprise, some of the people that the Star Telegram wrote today, they were unbothered. This lady said it's pretty unusual, especially for this neighborhood. That voting site was at least one of at least a dozen across Tarrant to clock wait times longer than 45 minutes over the course of the morning and late afternoon today, the first day of early voting. You have till November 1st to cast your ballot early for the November 5th election. So for that, in that regard, I am extremely excited. I mean, let's look at the calendar, guys. If you look at the calendar, today's the first day of it. You have 21 days. So you have until November 1st. I mean, you have literally you have 2 weeks. Yeah, you have 2 more weeks to November 1st. So there you go. You got this whole week, and then I'm sure they're open on Saturday. I don't know if they're open on Sunday, but you got between now and Saturday, presumably, and then next week, all week long until Friday. Friday's the 1st, and then it's the last day, I guess. And then, of course, you can do it on the 5th. So, we have 2 weeks. I'll be going sometime 3-4 days from now or something. I don't know. If there are going to be 45-minute lines every day for 3 weeks, 2 weeks, come on. Only if Kamala wins, there will be lines like that for bread and water with their price gouging and their high inflation and high unemployment and high regulation destroying businesses. So that is that, y'all. Coming up next on the Chris Crock Show at 9:46. Oh, this is great. A passenger was kicked off a flight, forced to change her shirt. The problem is it was called offensive by the flight attendant, but I doubt anyone here is going to think it's offensive. I doubt you will find it offensive, especially if you support our veterans. That is next on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 92.3 at 9:46.
Hello, welcome to McDonald's. How can I help you?
Yeah, can I get a 20-piece chicken nuggets?
Well, I can give you some French fries. They're the best fries. Nobody makes fries like these. You're gonna love them.
I don't really want fries. Can I get
I made these fries, and everybody says, these are the best fries we've ever had.
Okay.
These are the best fries. No one makes fries like you.
I really just want a chicken sandwich. Can I?
Kamala never makes fries like this. She doesn't know how. Only I know how. You're gonna have to try these fries. You'll love them.
Can I maybe speak to the manager or somebody? Is there someone else?
You want to speak to the manager? How about this? How about we just listen to some music? You want to listen to some music? Okay, here we go.
Okay.
All right, there we have that. That's on my social media if you can see that. Also on there is this. Ready?
Donald Trump putting on a little McDonald's costume because he thinks that's what people do. They're not trying to empathize with us. They are making fun of us. They are making fun of us. Donald Trump thinks that people who work at McDonald's are a joke. Elon Musk thinks that dangling money in front of a working person is a cute thing to do when the election of our lives is before us. Because that's what people and billionaires like that do.
Okay, there you go. Wow, huh? I think that he does a great job at the drive-thru. I didn't know he was doing that too today. That's fantastic. Well, I wanted to share that. That's a little treat I wanted to share with you. But the San Francisco Gate reports quite a story. A Marine Corps veteran who supports a group that helps veterans to stay alive. It's called the Till Valhalla Project. It honors soldiers by raising funds for family to receive memorial plaques after their loved ones die and to help pay for therapy for struggling veterans. I think that's a brilliant and wonderful and important cause. She bought a shirt from them. A woman named Catherine Banks, Marine Corps veteran. She was asked to get off her flight, which was leaving San Francisco International. She exited the plane, and then she was told she needed to change because her shirt was threatening by a Delta airline flight attendant. It featured a message about veteran suicide rates. It says, ready? Do not give in to the war within. Do not give in to the war within. End veteran suicide. That's it. Do not give in to the war within. End veteran suicide. She said after the flight attendant pulled her off the plane and told her you have to change your shirt, that's offensive, she informed him that, yes, it was a he that was the flight attendant. She said, she was forced then still She said, I'm a veteran. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. She was still forced to change on the jet bridge, had to turn her back away from the flight attendant because she wasn't wearing a bra. I said, are you kidding me? I'm a Marine Corps vet. I'm going to see my Marine sister. I've been in the Marine Corps for 22 years and worked for the Air Force for 15. I'm going to visit her. He said, I don't care about your service, and I don't care about her service. The only way we're going to get back on the plane is you take it off right now. When she got back on the plane, she was forced to sit in the back of the sit in the back instead of sitting in the seat she paid for, which had extra leg room. Veteran suicides are at an all-time high, the San Francisco Gate reports, and that's according to United Service Organizations. In 2021, research found 30,000 active duty personnel and veterans who served in the military after 9/11 have died by suicide. 30,000. Compare that to the 7,000 killed in combat in those same 20 years. We have lost 30,000 veterans to suicide since 9/11, and that's compared to only 7,000 lost. Every life matters. I'm not saying only, but I'm saying there's 23,000 more veterans have killed themselves than have died in combat, in service, in the past 20 years. Her shirt is sold by the Till Valhalla Project, which helps veterans struggling with therapy, and it gives them therapy. Delta Airlines contract says it can remove passengers from the flight if a passenger's conduct, attire, or hygiene or order creates an unreasonable risk of offense or annoyance. I want to ask you something. Do you find a shirt that says "Do not give in to the war within and veteran suicide" offensive? Do you find that offensive? I like it. I'm glad she was wearing that shirt. I don't think you have to be a veteran or to have worn it, and to wear it, and I don't think you need to be a veteran to say you support it just as much as she does. She does. I don't find it offensive at all. So my question is, do you find a shirt that says "Do not give in to the war within, end veteran suicide"? Do you find that offensive? And why do you think a male flight attendant found it to be offensive? Why do you think a male flight attendant found it to be offensive? Oh, I can tell you why I think so. I'm guessing that this is a anti-military, low-T Kamala Harris voter. As the fact that this is a man is especially troubling to me. To me, this is one of those low-T white men, the white dudes for Harris. And that's who it is that's offended by this and threw her off. And I think Delta is disgusted. I think Delta should give her a full refund and should give her 10 times the amount that she lost in vouchers and make a $10,000 donation or more to that group and apologize to her and to every veterans and to say we're giving $10,000 to the Valhalla organization and we're going to give you if her flight was $500, they should give her $2,500. Or actually $5,000 in vouchers and buy or make that big donation. The Democrats are the people who say, and this is from my buddy Eric Erickson wrote this column today about feminine peace squatters. They talk about the Harris ad showing that she's for they, them, Trump is for you. They've spent a number of years, my friend writes, the Democrats have railed against men under the rubric of toxic masculinity, man-spreading and mansplaining. They're putting boys and men into women's sports. The Guardian UK declaring about your well-being makes you a fascist. Time declaring exercise is linked to white supremacy. Newsweek got worked up over hot girls being a right-wing obsession. The New Republic thinks red meat is a subtext for right-wing. The thinkers in the Democrat Party, my friend writes, believe if you want to stay in shape, are interested in hot chicks, or eat red meat, then you're a toxically masculine fascist right-winger. Also, if you don't think men can get pregnant, you're a bigot Trump voter. I think that's exactly who this was that took her off the plane. I think he despises veterans. He thinks they're cowards and warmongers. And I think he doesn't want to stop them from killing themselves. He wants them to die because he hates them. That's who he is. And these are Kamala Harris voters who I think. And I think Delta is disgusting and should be ashamed of themselves and should make this right now. now. What does a Delta spokesperson say? I'll tell you, and you tell me. Do you find a shirt that says, "Do not give in to the war within, end veteran suicide" offensive? And why do you think a male flight attendant found it to be offensive? 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. Coming up at 10:03, not only will I tell you what Delta says in response to the story, also the Biden administration leaks intel on an upcoming Israeli attack. High-value classified intel that they gathered with spy machines, with spy satellites on Israel as they prepare to attack Iran. That is coming up next on the Chris Kroc Show. It shows they have a very anti-Semitic administration under Biden-Harris, and I'm not surprised at all. That's at 10:03.